Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5 a.m. Club. It's Tuesday morning. It's going to be an absolute cracker of a day. It's mild, there's a gentle breeze coming in from the west, and Sydney is slowly but surely waking up to another day during Christmas week. It's a train strike today, so the trains are running very late. So a train would normally run here at Circular Quay every 3 to 5 minutes this time of the morning. The next train will be coming in about 20 minutes time, which gives me enough time to do a vlog and to get to work. So what I want to do today is take you through another book summary like we normally do on Jim's 5 a.m. Club. And today's book is a beauty. It's a book that will get us thinking and help us understand and put things into perspective. The book is entitled The Paradox of Choice by an author known as Barry Schwatz. A book written a number of years ago, but the messages are timeless and are as relevant today as what they would have been 100 years, 1,000 years ago, and as relevant as what they'll be in 1,000 years from today as well. So it's going to be very quiet here on the station. Normally there's lots of chit and chatter, but because of the strike action today, I guess I'll have a lot more time to deliver the book summary without being interrupted. So this book delves into happiness, and the author kicks off his writing with an important quote where he says, "The secret to happiness is having low expectations."
The next train to arrive on platform 2 goes to...
And we talk about how choice and choices have brought about depression, misery, and dissatisfaction. Because what the author says is that the freedom to choose that we so longed for 50 years ago, when we look back and reflect, it was one of the main roots of our unhappiness and our sadness today. So the first formal point to come out of this book is where the author says that the more options you have, the harder it gets to decide, and the harder it is to decide well. If you look around, even just at the supermarkets, just looking at the options that we have, the products that are on the shelf have proliferated so much that between 1975 and 2008, the number of products that we have available to us on supermarket shelves have grown from 9,000 to over 45,000. You know, you go to the supermarket these days to buy peanut butter, and you've got so many different choices. You've got crunchy, you've got smooth, you've got with salt, without salt. You've got natural. You know, there are just so many choices and so many different price points that it becomes an absolute headache just trying to identify and buy a peanut butter. So the more choice you enjoy, the greater the chance of making a mistake, is what the author talks about. Because some of our choices, not all of them, of course, but some of our choices, according to the author, end up having big consequences. So this is the challenge that we face, that when we're faced with lots of products or lots of choices, we need to try and weigh up and consider the consequences. Of course, some will have bigger consequences, others will have smaller consequences, but we need to map out and weigh up in our brains, in our minds, the first, second and third level consequences of each of those choices that we are posed. And this leaves us, according to the author, with a crushing burden, because it's left to us to make the choices, unlike yesteryear where the government would make choices for us, our parents, our guardians, other people, our bosses would make choices. These days, the burden of choice falls upon the individual. And whilst it gives us autonomy, it also gives us the burden, because you get burdened with the choice and with the consequences. And the other thing that we haven't sort of considered is that when choosing, we tend to make the wrong assumptions on the future and end up making choices we don't want, and we end up making choices that sadly we may regret, because it's a game. Because you're given a choice, because you're given autonomy, you're also left with the consequences of those choices, which a lot of people don't feel comfortable with and struggle with. And it ends up, as we said before, causing depression, causing dissatisfaction, and causing them cognitive dissonance. And it sits for many people in their subconscious, saying, well, geez, if I'd caught the previous train, then I could have got to work earlier. But you don't know whether or not that train would have terminated based on today's industrial dispute. But who knows, because nobody's been to the future, but we are tormented by what may have happened or what may have ended up. So the second formal point to come out of this book is where the author says that the more options you have, the less happy you will be, no matter what you decide on. This is a powerful point. Even though you've got lots of choices, you end up being disappointed anyway, because regardless of what you decide, you end up worrying about whether or not you've made the right choice. The author makes it very clear, and I guess we all tend to learn this over time, that the perfect choice simply doesn't exist, because it's hard to compare and contrast the choice that you've made, the two products that you've got side by side, because no product, no service, no person, no promise are ever the same. And what happens is that this creates additional stress, because each choice that we make has an opportunity cost that we need to weigh up in our minds. And as we said before, this becomes a burden that a lot of people can't handle and don't wish to handle. So we need to understand that whenever you make a decision, regardless of what you decide on, you will still worry about the other options, the other products, the other things that you didn't take into consideration. And sometimes you just need somebody to make a decision for you. For a number of years, I worked as a mobile phone salesperson. My wife and I had a couple of mobile phone dealerships, and we often had lots of customers come in not knowing what they wanted and procrastinating because they didn't know what they want. the more options, the more choices you provided them, the harder it became. One of the most important things that I learnt in sales is that some people just can't decide. Some people just procrastinate, and the biggest mistake you can do is provide them with more choices. Sometimes you just need to bite the bullet and limit the number of choices that you offer. And in fact, sometimes you just need to make the choice for them in order to close the deal. When I worked in sales, in corporate sales and corporate business case development, we learnt at an early stage that when you put together a proposal, sometimes the best thing, the best strategy to take is the triplicate of service. And that is to offer 3 options and to price up 3 options. Option 1 is the baseline option, the basic option, which doesn't satisfy all the requirements that the client has. The second option is to provide a bells and whistles option. So the baseline option is the cheap option. The bells and whistles option is where you give them all that they want plus more, and you price it accordingly. You price it to the hilt, so it's the expensive option. And the third option you provide is the option that meets their requirements. Of course, you need to understand what they're looking for in the first place, and through question and answer, you can narrow it down. And once you understand exactly what they're looking for, you offer that as the third option, and you price it somewhere in between the basic option, the base option, and the bells and whistles option. And of course, your client will end up very, very happily selecting the middle option, and you make it easy for them, and you've made it easier for yourself. So the last formal point to come out of this book summary today is that when you're trying to choose things, sometimes you need to be smart and you need to do the homework up front for yourself, because good enough is often the best option, the best choice. The author here talks about becoming a satisficer. A satisficer is a person who just focuses on making a decision and making a selection of whatever is good enough, and not trying to make the perfect choice, which will drive you crazy. Because sometimes trying to make the best choice will make you miserable and will make you unhappy, as we've alluded to earlier. So in order to become and be a satisficer for yourself and for those around you, what the author here says is that what we normally need to do is to first come up with a criteria up front before you make the purchase, before you make selections, and before you go through the decisions. So coming up with the criteria in terms of what you're looking for exactly will help you make the best possible decision. Of course, it won't allow you to make the perfect decision, because as we mentioned before, the perfect decision is impossible. You just don't have the time, the effort, the resources, and the information to make the best decision possible. So sometimes you just need to make a decision which ticks enough of the boxes to get on with your life. So what you need to do is identify the criteria, what you're looking for in general, and then pick a product that either fits its criteria the best or doesn't fit the criteria, and just eliminate it. So obviously you buy the first thing that fits your criteria and ticks the number of boxes. Otherwise, you're going to be caught up and terrorized by choice. The terror of choice, as we said, for many people, brings about tremendous pressure and tremendous misery. So we need to create artificial limits on ourselves and on on our customers and on the people around us. You know, you need to basically allow people to choose based on the cards that you deal them, or the cards that life deals you. But of course, you know, if you're a customer, you can always ask for other cards. But this will lead you on a merry chase, on a merry-go-round, where you won't be able to identify or choose something because you've got far too many choices to deal with. So limit your choices and save your sanity is the key message that comes from this book. So I guess that leaves us with you know, an interesting start to our Tuesday, where we've gone through and learnt a little bit more about the paradox of choice, knowing that making the perfect choice is going to be impossible, and not to worry about it. You know, don't spend too much time comparing and contrast, because as we said, no two products are ever the same, and no two promises ever eventuate. So thank you once again for joining me on this beautiful, most beautiful Tuesday morning, where I'm coming to you from Circular Quay on this relatively quiet day, where we have industrial action, and I've had a good 20 minutes to develop and deliver this book summary today, The Paradox of Choice by Barry Schwatz, where we've learnt a few more things and that we can hopefully incorporate into our daily schedule. I think I'll leave you there. So wishing you all the best for today, and we'll chat again. Bye for now. Cheerio.